Adding and subtracting mixed numbers, no regrouping. No regrouping just means that in this video we're going to look at examples where we don't need to borrow when we're subtracting and we don't need to carry any numbers when we're adding mixed numbers. Now I've seen a variety of different methods used in adding and subtracting mixed numbers, and what I find to be best is to actually rewrite these vertically. So in this little video I made, you can see how the example up top is written horizontally. I find it's a little bit better and you're a little more accurate if you rewrite these vertically. And you need to bring over your whole numbers, and in this example the denominators you would need to change both because you can't add thirds and fourths. And you convert each fraction, then you add the fractions and whole numbers. This is actually a bad example because there is some regrouping involved in the answer. So let's move on to the next page. We're going to do 3 examples of each. In our first example, if you look at the denominators, they're the same. They're ninths. So we can go ahead and just add these. 2 ninths and 1 ninth is 3 ninths. And 5 plus 3 is 8. Now this could be simplified to 8 and 1/3. In our next example, you have fourths and eighths. You really only need to change one of the denominators. The least common denominator would be 8. You want to change them both to eighths. Now I've seen a common mistake kids will make is they want to change both of these to 32nds. They'll multiply the denominators and they change both fractions into 32nds, which is fine. You'll get the right answer. You'll just have to do, a little more work at the end in simplifying your answer. So we only want to change one denominator. Let me get my whole numbers here. We're going to change these both to eighths. Well, this one's already in eighths. It's 1/8. And this would equal how many eighths? Well, 4 times 2 is 8. We're going to multiply the numerator by 2. So this 1/4 is equal to 2/8. And now we can go ahead and add our fractions. So 2/8 and 1/8 is 3/8. And 8 plus 6 is 14. And that is in simplest form. Now in the next example, we're actually going to have to change both denominators. You can't add 6 and 8ths. Our least common denominator would be 24ths. Now again, I've seen some kids change these both into 48ths, and that's fine. You're going to get the right answer. You would just have to simplify your answer at the end. So 8 times 3 would give you 24, so we're going to do the top times 3. Our numerator here would be 15. 6 times what would give you 24? 6 times 4, so we do the top times 4, the numerator times 4. And we get 4. Now we can go ahead and add these fractions. 4 24ths and 15 24ths is 19 24ths, and the 6 just drops down. Just drops down. So if you see what I've done here, in our first example, you didn't have to change either of the denominators. In the second example, you had to change one of them. And in our third example, we had to change both. Well, we're going to do the same thing with some subtraction examples. In the first one, they're both fifths. We can just go ahead and do the subtraction here. 4/5 minus 2/5 is 2/5, and 9 minus 2 is 7. In our next example, we are going to have to change one of the denominators. We have ninths and thirds. Let me get my whole numbers over here first. Well, it's real easy to change thirds into ninths. So we can just leave that, 8 ninths. 3 times what is 9? 3 times 3. So 1 times 3 is 3. 1/3 equals 3 ninths. Those are equivalent fractions. And we can then go ahead and subtract. 8 ninths minus 3 ninths is 5 ninths. And 5 minus 3 is 2. In our last example, we're going to have to change both the denominators. So let me get my whole numbers over here first. And in this particular example, we have fifths and halves. So our least common denominator would be 10. We're going to change them both into tenths. Well, 1/2 is easy. That's 5/10. Because 2 times 5 is 10, and 1 times 5 would be 5. 3/5. 5 times 2 is 10. we do the numerator times 2, it would be 6. And then, excuse me, we can go ahead and subtract. 6 tenths minus 5 tenths is 1 tenth, and 10 minus 2 is 8. So that's all there is to it. Sometimes when you're adding and subtracting mixed numbers, you're going to have to change, well, you might not have to change either of the denominators, or sometimes you'll have to change one, or in some cases you'll have to change both denominators before you can add and subtract them. And that's all there is to it.